didn't know what I was expecting going into the Owl House. I heard a bunch of people say that it's a good show, but only recently got around to watch it, and I gotta say, yeah, this is a pretty good show. Perhaps it's my reluctant, oxymoronic enjoyment of the Harry Potter series and there being a lot of references to the series in it, or just my overall love of magic-centric stories as a whole, but I was certainly sucked into the show in record time and binged it pretty aggressively. It's going to be difficult reviewing a show like this, though, as it's got an ongoing story that requires a bit of understanding in order to appreciate it, but I'll try to do my best to explain what needs to in order to get my point across. I highly recommend watching this show yourselves, though. It's worth it. Also, spoilers afoot for the Owl House for the reasons mentioned prior. So the story is about this girl named Luz stumbling upon a magical realm called the Boiling Isles, where she meets Ida the Owl Lady and her small demon kitty king. Disclaimer, he's probably not actually a cat, but details. He's small. Luz finds out that she can do magic at some point in the series and enrolls in a Hogwarts of her own called Hexside, where she prior made friends with Willow Park and Gus Porter. She also has episodes between her and this other character named Amity Blight, who started out as the school popular girl trope, and overall became more at ease around Luz, bringing us into the episode we're covering today, Enchanting Grom Fright. We start the episode with Luz practicing plant magic. Now, it's important to note that she doesn't have the ability to just do magic on her own like most witches can, and instead has to draw glyphs that correlate with the elements surrounding her. This was seen in a previous episode where she found out how to do ice magic, looking at snowflakes, and seen here where she's studying a tulip's patterns. This is a point I want to make regarding the magic system of the show being really good, because the show knows that it wants to be more lighthearted, at least as of right now given the end of Season 1, but it still keeps the magic consistent with how it's used, where it comes from, and just generally how it works. We know magic comes from nature, but we also know that witches have evolved as a species to be able to cast it without the need to draw it somewhere. Humans don't have that biological ability, so they have to tap into it through other means, and Luz learns through those other means as a beginner witch in training. And this does come back into play later. Anyway, Luz then gets a text from her mother. This is another recurring point to take note of, because Luz at the beginning of the series was supposed to be sent to reality check camp due to her quirky and eccentric nature, but as mentioned before, found herself in the Boiling Isles instead. They're sparse, but we get a few scenes like this where Luz lies to her mother, telling her she's still at the camp and having a good time being there. Obviously, she can't just tell her mother that she's in a literal different dimension, but this is something regardless to keep in mind. Anyway, Luz heads off to school, and this is where we hear about the Grom Night, which is like prom, and Luz takes note of that, but it's ultimately got a different goal here. We get explained it later, but prom in this world is used to fight a creature named Grom, who shapeshifts into whoever's fighting its worst fears. It tries to crawl out every year, and whoever is nominated Grom Queen has to fight it. And what we find at this point is that Amity is our unlucky Grom Queen and is panicked at the thought. Luz brings up the idea that she could take over, and Ida and King laugh at her, knowing that she's not ready. However, Amity seems reluctantly okay with the idea, thinking that at the end of the day they're all doomed. This is when we get to Grom, get a wonderfully gay scene of Amity and Luz starting her journey into being Grom Queen. There's admittedly not a ton to talk about here. The episode really just does get to the point, gives us the world building we needed, gives us some good character interactions, and gets into the action. But this 13-minute build-up is what gives us the reason that I wanted to look at this episode more than any of the others, despite there being other, admittedly better episodes within the series. Up to this point, the most we get as a fear of Luz is the fear that she'll never be a real witch. Considering what I mentioned prior, she is at a disadvantage to most other witches, not being able to cast magic on her own without the help of glyphs. This also has come up several points of the show and other episodes, being a source of borderline discrimination for Luz. So up to this point, it's totally reasonable for one of her deepest fears to never be good enough to prove those people wrong, and the episode tries to lean us into that direction. But the show here, at this point in time, pins a 180 and gives us the thing that didn't have that much attention previously brought to it, by demonstrating us the fear that Luz has about her mother finding out her secret life away from the camp that she's supposed to be at. And as someone who binged the show, I appreciate this because we really didn't get a whole lot from that plot point. Anyway, Luz starts running away, not being able to face her own mother, technically letting Grom out, and everyone chases after her for a battle sequence between Grom, Luz, and Amity. who we learned has a massive fear of rejection. But this is easily my favorite battle sequence of the entire series thus far, because sure, there are certainly flashier and longer, more action-packed battle sequences in the series. This one is just so smooth and well animated, plus it shows a new dynamic between two characters we rarely saw together previously, and I enjoy that. This episode was pretty sweet, and I enjoy its nods at the various aspects we've been learning up to this point, and it definitely shows how the show is attentive to detail. I highly recommend watching it when you get the chance. I'm sorry this review was a little on the shorter side. As you could probably imagine, 2020's gotten the better of me too, and has drained most of my motivation to do things consistently, so I will admit I had to kind of rush this one a bit. I still hope you guys enjoyed it nevertheless, and I will see you next time.